Get on to our next guest here, Joseph Vranich. Give Joe Vranich a hand,
Hello.
everybody.
Thank you.
We've had Joe on many times. He's a business relocation specialist, and he comes on every few months to tell us how many hundreds of companies have fled California because of the horrible economy and all the onerous regulation. Today we're going to have him on for high-speed rail because he was, at one time, a high-speed rail advocate. But he saw early on that this California high-speed rail project was absurd, and we thought that his perspective would be an interesting one to have on. Joe, thanks for coming on again.
I'm glad to be here with you guys.
So you used to be on, some kind of high-speed rail commission? Or
Well, I was president of the High-Speed Rail Association based in Washington, D.C., and I've written about high-speed rail all over the country. I'm an author of the book Super Trains, which is now 20 years old, forward by Tom Clancy. It was praised by Bill Clinton, and the book actually calls for high-speed rail in California. However, this project has turned out to be the biggest, most misrepresented high-speed rail project I've ever seen. I consider it downright fraudulent, and I'll just point out that my writings have now changed. I'll show to the audience a report that came out in November 2008, just before the election, co-published by Reason Foundation, Citizens Against Government Waste, and Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. And in this, I and my co-author, Wendell Cox, predicted all kinds of things about this program. It's going to cost much more, not as many people would ride it, blah, blah, blah. The report was criticized heavily, but guess what? Here we are in 2012. Every single finding we have in this report has proven to be accurate or underestimated in our criticism. So if you want to see the report or sections of it, you can go to the Reason Foundation website, read it, and weep because it was so overlooked in this state.
So what did you use back in 2008 as the basis for your research and your report? Did you look at a business plan they had or the initiative? What was there to go from?
Wendell and I spent months examining every single document we could, literally hundreds of documents, including the supporting documents that they rely on to build their business plan upon. The interesting thing, by the way, is about a month before the 2008 election, a lot of those supporting documents were removed from the website of the California High-Speed Rail Authority. And I said to the California Senate in testimony, I said, why is it that just when California citizens should have the most information available to make a good judgment on which way to vote, that they now have less information available? So we dug into all the numbers and details.
what are the most egregious lies or distortions that you found?
The most egregious one is something I think everybody can understand, and that is ridership. At one point in 2008, they were claiming that they would carry as many as 117 million people a year. I'm not kidding you. I did not make that number up. If that was true, that means California's line would carry more high-speed rail passengers than just about all the high-speed rail systems in the world combined. And then they said, oh, well, we really didn't mean that. We mean something else. And then they lowered their estimate. Well, we predicted that it would be, we're predicting now that it'll be about 6.9 million people a year will ride it.
First, 117 million was their original number.
Right.
7 million people, it ain't going to pay for itself, is it?
No way will it pay for itself. Not only will it lose money and require subsidies from California taxpayers, but those subsidies will be in perpetuity. It's not like we're subsidizing the construction of a city hall and then once it's built, you aren't paying for it anymore. This thing will go on and on, so our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren will be paying for it.
What do you suspect they were doing here? Were they intentionally lying in order to get support?
There's something called zealotry. And I was a zealot when I first moved to Washington, D.C. in 1970, a long time ago. As a young guy, I was a liberal. I believed spend money on everything. It makes the world better. And over the years, I've been on an intellectual journey because I've seen so many programs overpromised and underdelivered. I used to have an office within the Federal Railroad Administration, and I used to see people actually arguing with each other over who should get how many file cabinets. And I thought, this is our government at work. So the more disillusioned I became, the more I realized we should not let government programs be run by zealots. This program is run by trained zealots, by people who have romantic notions about the trains of Europe and all of that sort of stuff. And they wind up exaggerating things. Rod Diridon, who's a big promoter of this and is from San Jose, his father was a conductor on the railroad. So he has an emotional attachment. So these people get up and they use hyperbole to promote this thing that is far beyond what the basis in fact is.
Well, so do they believe in it? Do these zealots that you describe, would they actually believe in these numbers, or they knew they were lies?
I think some of them believe in the numbers because they confuse hope with facts. I think other people are deliberately lying. And let me give you an example. When you had Wendell on Monday, it was a great show. Wendell was talking about how, there are people who say, well, if you don't build high-speed rail, it's going to cost even more to build the adequate capacity in highways and airports to make up for the people we would have carried
They're
on
still
high-speed
saying
rail.
this, by the way. Darrell Steinberg keeps repeating this. Jerry Brown keeps repeating this. We can't build enough freeway space we need. We can't build enough airport capacity. And by the way, this is where Jerry Brown is famously told us what, John? How many millions of more people are coming to California too?
Yeah, that they claims I don't know how many tens of billions of people are coming and that we have to build for them. And I'm guessing that's like focus group tested, that they trotted out some of these arguments in front of political focus groups and they got a positive reaction from the people, so that's become their latest selling line. Because they're selling the way companies try to sell soap. They're selling you the idea that high-speed rail is going to have somehow dramatically impact positively your life. So it's a psychological manipulation. It's emotional manipulation. That's what all of politics is about.
That's right. And they base that. I'm going to give you, I don't like to use too many numbers, but I want to give you one. Wendell talked about how these alternative costs were going to be so high. Let me tell you, they, I think, purposely confuse the numbers. What I mean to say is, if a highway builder said, okay, there's a Chevy Suburban going down the road and it's got one driver in it, one guy, their driver, and there are 7 empty seats. Would that highway builder say, well, that's a total of 8 seats, so we need to build a capacity to handle all the empty seats that are being moved? The High-Speed Rail Authority literally counted empty seats and double counted this and triple counted that to come up with completely bogus figures about how much would be spent to expand our highways and our airports. And they call this a business plan. I have to tell you, I work as a business coach. If any business person or corporate executive put together a business plan like this, it would be in violation of so many federal and state laws, they would be headed to jail. That's how fraudulent Sacramento has been over the high-speed rail program.
All right, hang on.
We got more to
Joe Vranich. Joe Vranich has joined us. Of course, he's the business relocation coach. He also worked on a Reason Foundation report in 2008 exposing all the lies in high-speed rail. And his report came out before people voted, but I guess the word didn't get out enough to people in California who approved the brown doggle in 2008. All right, we're at the Ayers Hotel. Continue with Joe Vranich, the business relocation coach, and also in 2008, he co-authored a report for the Reason Foundation pointing out all of the flaws, and that's a nice word for it, the lies and the distortions in California's high-speed rail proposal, but of course it passed anyway.
And Joe, I'm going to read the report. It's on Reason. What's the website so people at home?
Reason.org.
Reason.org. I'm going to want to read that, and because they predicted exactly what came to pass. What's going to happen here? I mean, they got $10 billion that they can spend from the borrowing that we approved, $3 billion from the Obama administration, $13 billion. Let's say they build a certain number of miles track in the Central Valley, and then what? It sits there.
Well, this is the tragic part of it. It would sit there, so we would spend a lot of money building something out of concrete that no one will use. By the way, one of the groups that support this are the environmentalists because of global warming and GHG's greenhouse gas emissions. And I want to say this: if there's somebody listening to this show who is an environmentalist who believe we need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions because of global warming, if you believe that, fine. But this project is absolutely the worst thing to do if you want to reach that goal. The legislative analyst report in Sacramento estimated it would be 71 years before the GHG benefit would come about because so many GHGs would be generated during construction. Moreover, we talk about businesses leaving California, and what a lot of people don't know is concrete, cement, creates a lot of greenhouse gases. And because of that, we've had 2 companies close down cement factories here in the last couple years. Cal Portland Cement closed in Riverside, and a plant closed up in Davenport near Santa Cruz. Why? Because they could not meet the AB 32 Global Warming Initiative Act when it comes to emissions. So when we go to build high-speed rail, we will have cement loaded on ships in China, come all the way across the Pacific Ocean, unloaded in California ports, trucked to the Central Valley to make the concrete for this high-speed rail line. So we have actually worsened our GHG situation with the law that forces cement companies here to close down, and a law that would cause a high-speed rail to be built.
If these people are truly concerned about global warming and the environment, why do they engage in these decisions? Why do they send the business to China and then back a project which is going to take almost 75 years to pay off on the global warming gas? I don't understand it. If they're sincere about their beliefs, why are their actions so screwy?
John, I'm asked this question all the time, and I cannot explain self-defeating attitude or people shooting themselves in the foot. They either don't believe in these things that are said, or they confuse hope, how great the system will be, with reality. It won't be that great. Or they just don't care.
Now, Joe, you've looked at the ballot initiative. Shouldn't this be easy to beat in the courts? Because there's so many violations here.
Yeah, you're so right. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking of writing a column about all the things that were promised on Proposition 1A and what we have now. I'll just give you one example. Proposition 1A said you'll be able to get on a train in Los Angeles that'll run nonstop and get you to San Francisco in 2 hours and 38 minutes. Our estimate now is that at the fastest nonstop train would probably take 3 hours and 50 minutes. Now, keep in mind, every time a train stops, and you add a stop to it, you have to add 11 minutes to the schedule. Okay, there's a coefficient there. You add 11 minutes. So some of these trains could take 4.5 hours, all the way up to 6 hours, depending on how many stops they make along the way.
And they're all supposed to go 2 hours and 38 minutes?
No, only the nonstop ones.
Just the nonstop ones?
Yeah. And they promise trains every 10 minutes, but with this new plan they have to mesh the high-speed rail in with the commuter trains and the freight trains to get into L.A. and San Francisco, they will probably have only 4 per hour, 2 in each direction. So
you're saying the nonstop time at best is 3 hours and 50 minutes under their current plan?
At best.
Well, how do they get around that then? Doesn't a judge shoot that dead?
I would hope so. I mean, I'm not a lawyer.
Unless they find a zealot judge who believes in the same myths that they believe in.
Yeah, but even that can be overturned on appeal. I mean, a fact is a fact, right? It has to be 2 hours and 38 minutes. It's 3 hours and 50 minutes. There's no way they can bring it down based on their current funding and their current plan.
I don't know what will happen, but a judge was disqualified yesterday in Sacramento. The plaintiffs who are anti-high-speed rail filed a suit, and they said, we don't want this judge doing this because he I don't know what they said, he has a conflict of interest or whatever, so they had to agree to remove the judge. So this is going to turn into one huge legal bonanza for law firms in California.
All right, Joe, thanks for talking to us. We appreciate it. Joe Vranich, you came here from Irvine.